Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Superman and Lois Season 2, Episode 15. So, gotta say, this feels like the most phoned-in season finale. It does. It just has this kind of approach about it that I'm like, man, like, we have it to where everybody is kind of putting in some effort besides title screen characters, people holding the title of the show. What are they doing? Nothing. Uh, why do they even call this Superman and Lois? Because they should have called it anything else. Um, so, uh, going on into this episode, I'm immediately thinking that there has to be, if there is going to be season 3, it seems like they're going in a direction that could say that there's going to be season 3 here, but I can't really justify there being a third season. If there is another season of the show, really what they gave us to give us this like clickbaiting thing, or kind of thing of like, hey guys, watch the third season because it might get more interesting with characters like Intergang and a guy named Bruno. And within this episode, John Diggle is to make another guest appearance, and he's to add nothing to the show again. Isn't that wonderful? Because John Diggle, I guess, is still on a Green Lantern 2 seasons later. Isn't that great? Of this show. It's great. It's wonderful. Just keep tying this character into the Arrowverse with John Diggle. Yeah, this is wonderful. Just man, how we kind of go on and have the obvious way for Superman to be Superman in this episode, but then it's just kind of like we do a lot of nothing, but then rush the important parts. And then we immediately go right back on to, hey guys, like, let's celebrate because we have nothing else to do in this episode. Man, just a lot of time just wasted on sequences that I'm like, this is some bullshit. Like, how... If people haven't dropped off for the season, man, are they gonna drop off for definitely when we get into the third season. Man, you're gonna have to give me some sweet characters to get me really interested. Can Tom Welling jump back into this show and be a Superman for a couple of episodes? Cause like that is the only way to get my freaking interest. Man, have you guys just gone on and driven this show into the ground, and it's just it's ridiculous. I hated everything from the season. This season was awful. I hated the villain, Bizarro. What was even the point of that? And so many characters end up just going on and like were to seem to be a threat, then you just kind of turned around and you made them irrelevant. Like Anderson, what kind of crap was that? So, within this episode, we are to go on and consistently have the Bizarro world and Superman and Lois's Earth kind of back and forthing. And so that seems to be the focus for most of this episode. That it's like, oh yeah, like, hey, look guys, Lois is on one planet, then she's on the other. Then one planet, on the other. Oh, this character on one planet, on the other. Oh wow, isn't this quacky? Isn't this quirky? Oh my god, this is like, yeah, that's what. That's seriously how they spent a finale just shifting people into different filters of Smallville. Wow, is that, man, that was some work. There was some work done there. What kind of bullshit. Like, but so we have, because Superman didn't have powers through this episode, we had to kind of have this build of Tal-Rho needing to step up in this episode, and when eventually he is to go on and still be a Superman, that is to have to go on and defeat this like uberly powerful entity. Now we go on, we have John Henry Irons that is still stuck on the Bizarro planet, and he needs something to do in this episode. And so, yeah, that's kind of what takes up a lot of time. And then eventually, Superman going on and being Superman in this episode. And then, huzzah, huzzah, we win again! We win! We save world! And I'm like, okay, whatever. Just like wrap this up so you can give me a better season 3, because you guys have made a massive mistake with the villain choice, with everything, and now you're just basically like finishing up this season with a BS effort. And so yeah, this season was straight up just gangster awful. And so, like, you're gonna probably lose another viewer. You're gonna lose me, because I could care less about the third season, especially with how like viewership for these reviews were dropping off like flies, because like no one was really interested in the show anymore. Um, and that's obvious. So that said, let's just go into that double five time territory, because about that time to just go into what is to, of course, be spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time again to spoil this episode. So the beginning of this is like, okay, guys, like we have the Kents who end up being on the Bizarro world, and then Bizarro Lois is talking to the Kent family, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is crazy! Uh, other Lois is not here, so we have to talk to Bizarro Lois." So, since Natalie is to be on the Bizarro world, she is to somehow get a connection with her father, and her father is talking to her about his plan, but she's kind of hearing only half of it. So Natalie is to say that this is her opportunity to go on and find her father and to try and help him, and so that's what she goes on and does. So we have John Henry Irons that is to send Natalie this message, and supposedly she only gets half of it, and so the other half is that John Henry Irons wanted Natalie to stock up on X Kryptonite to bring to him, so that way they can go on and take this escape pod and try to use it as a bomb. Because what's happening is we have these two suns that are fusing together, and to try to go on and avoid that, they end up detonating this escape pod by fusing both Natalie and John Henry Irons's suits power to go on and eventually detonate this explosion, separating the suns. So while that's going on, and we had like Natalie who was talking to Jonathan about what her plan was, and that she's going to go and find her dad because she realizes that he's still alive. And so like eventually that seems to be like her plan of just kind of talking things out. So we have Superman that's like, okay, like we don't really have a plan of how we can really take down Alley yet. We have to kind of figure or put pieces together. And so Talro was to step up and say, like, well, like I'm willing to help. Like so Talro was to go on and try to just delay the inevitable here, because Talro was to go on and make his way to Alley, and he ends up heat visioning. That's probably he heat visions Allie, and so Allie ends up going on and starting to suck the life out of Talro, and realizing that he's going to lose here, and so he's screaming like a little girl, and so Clark is just going on, and he's a normal human still. He has no power, so like he doesn't know what's going on. But Jordan is to go on and with his super hearing hear Talro screams, and so now Jordan is to like. And here's my thing here. So is Jordan's power like fully like he can do anything Superman can do, or he could do it better? Um, kind of thing now, because I'm like, I would have thought that like Jordan just going into space, there'd be some problems there, but I guess not. Because Jordan just goes into space, picks up his uncle, and saves him. And so they land on Earth, and Talro is like, hey Jordan, like you saved my life, you'll be forever in my debt. To where we end up finding out that the debt is to be paid by these two trucks that show up by the end of the episode, and having this letter from Talro, like thanking the Kents for saving him, or whatever bullshit, like that. Oh hey, yeah, like this is your uncle, and I'm gonna go on and I'm gonna give you these nice swanky cars. Isn't that great? But by the end of this episode, we end up just seeing Talro go back to Bizarro World and find who his wife is, and like kind of live happily over there. So, but also Talro is to go on and give Superman his costume, so that way Superman can go on and realize that he needs to be thrown into the sun to get his powers back, but of course it's dangerous. Like, go on and watch the animated movie All Star Superman, and you know exactly how dangerous it will be, and probably where they're going exactly within the next season, if there is really to be a justifiable audience number to watch this. So maybe they're only going to do 3 seasons and then just call it quits. Maybe they're just going to pull a Legion and only do 3 seasons of this, because man, I'm just waiting for them to do a whole episode where they're singing and dancing and there's a musical episode, because man, have they just really just given up on a season finale? What's going to make me think that the normal episodes in season 3 are going to be better than whatever the heck this was? So we also have the Cushing family that is looking for Kyle, as Kyle has somehow disappeared, because Kyle, of course, is over in Bizarro World, where uh, where Sarah and uh, and Lana are realizing that um, like Kyle is to have been teleported to this other world, as well as I think their youngest daughter. So eventually what happens is Kyle is to go on and meet up with Lois, as Lois is to make her way to uh to get back to her work. And so come to find out, we have Chrissy, who is to figure out a way to do this kind of translating thing. And so Lois is to start to talk to Chrissy with this translator, but then come to find out, Chrissy ends up getting taken to the other world, and so what good is that? Like, I think Lois should have taken that translator. So we have Lois who goes on and meets up with Sam, like her Sam from her world, because he also got sucked into this other world, and his car had vanished. So Lois also goes on and is to meet up with Kyle, and Kyle is to go on and say it's like, oh my god, I'm just gonna get stuck here on this bizarre world, and all I ever want to do is just see my family one more time. And then he, of course, ends up teleporting his way back to the other Earth, and he ends up going on and meeting up with his family and hugging them. I'm like, here's one thing that I would find fascinating, and I'm sure like they're gonna do this in the second season. I guarantee what they're gonna do is they are probably gonna go and have a character that was to be in the Bizarro world now on this world, and like a character that didn't really exist is now going to eventually be on this episode. So in am I already like I'm going through spoilers, right? I just had to like reconfirm that. So eventually I'm just kind of just going through spoilers, not knowing if I counted down and everything like that. So it's spoiler time anyways. So we go on, and by the end of this episode we have just John Diggle who shows up, still not a Green Lantern or anything. And what bullshit did they do by the end of Arrow, giving John Diggle a Green Lantern ring and not have him actually use it anywhere? Heaven forbid, right? So John Diggle ends up giving John Henry Irons this intergang uh like file or folder, and that is talking about a guy named Bruno, and that supposedly on this world, the one that this John Henry Irons was not at, the real John Henry Irons that was on this world had gotten killed by this guy named Bruno from Intergang. And I'm like, okay, like I guess that's gonna be a clickbaiting thing to tell you where the next season's going, right? So we have Superman that is telling his brother to chuck him into the sun, and so Talro goes on and takes Superman to the sun and chucks him in there. And so now Superman is to become All-Star Superman and is to consume too much of the sun, and then at some point in season 3 he's probably going to die, because All-Star Superman. So we now have a Superman that is to be uberly powerful because of the sun's rays, heavily sun's rays, I might say. So we immediately just have Superman who is so uberly powerful, he's easily able to tear Allie apart between her Bizarro self and her normal Earth self. And they end up booking Allie and arresting her. And so that ends up kind of really just saying, like, man, Superman was so powerful that he didn't do jack crap nothing as far as an action sequence in this episode. But then we turn around and then we just have Miracle Monday, because this show airs on a Wednesday, but we're calling this Miracle Monday. What a stupid, I'm like, this show airs on Wednesdays. You guys can't even tell what day of the week this show, like, gets delivered to people? Do you guys have no clue what you're doing? This show is delivered on a Wednesday. I guess it doesn't matter, because when really looking at it, they're like, hey, this is just going to get shoved in some streaming thing somewhere. HBO Max or some garbage. So it'll be fine. It doesn't need to, like, we don't need to, like, justify. Um, but so the only good moment that I think is out of this whole entire show, or this whole entire episode, is we go on and we have Sarah and we have Jordan kind of talking it out finally about Sarah knowing Jordan's secret. And so we have Jordan and Sarah that it's like, well, how about we go on and hit the hard reset button and never remember again about how Jordan was to be like, you're breaking up with me? Yeah, could we just like erase that from ever being an existing thing? Or can he just go on and say that same line delivery somewhere down the road in season 3, an episode that I probably won't watch because I probably won't attach myself to this show anymore because really just the viewership is just not there, but that's probably just because of me. It probably has nothing to do with the show. I'm sure views are being are happening for a number of other people, but just not me. Because there's a lot of times it's kind of weird how I would go on and watch like certain other YouTube channels where it's like, man, like the views are really going into their superhero show, but man, just me, no. So it's like, oh well, like I can go on and try other things and do other shows, and it kind of gets to the point where you can kind of go on and just kind of really experiment and not have to always hope for like a certain set of things to just magically happen. You got to figure out a way to make them happen. So that's where I've been going with for a number of just X amount of days now. So within this episode, we have Lois who just goes on and is to tell her Chrissy, her version of Chrissy, on her world, because this is we're back on the normal world now, the normal Earth, and we have Lois who tells Chrissy, "Hey, yeah, like Clark Kent, he's Superman. Just so you know, just so you're aware." And Chrissy's like, wait a minute, are you lying to me? And Lois is like, no, like, I've held this secret for a very long time, so I think now it's time for you to just know this secret. And because Lois doesn't want to lie to Chrissy anymore, and so you might as well just divulge this secret that Superman is Clark Kent. And Chrissy should just go on and just be like, well, I want $1 million for my news company, so I'm just going to print out like Clark Kent is Superman, and then hope everyone else is just going to figure out that secret also. Just be like, yeah, I think he is Superman. Like, I've kind of been going on and kind of just watching him and stalking him, and I found out, yeah, like, he is Superman. That's weird. So weird. So it seems like at some point we should just have everybody know that Clark Kent is Superman, but that's just me. That's, I guess I'm in the minority of things. So, other than that, everyone is just kind of celebrating that they won, but really Superman did all the heavy lifting. But so, really, I think besides all this, like, I think that's all that is to really need to have been really said about this show. I think I covered most of it, or any of the little bits and pieces that I probably didn't go on and talk about was probably because there was just nothing really going on in this episode. And so I just kind of like did the episode as just like, okay, let me just talk about this now, let me talk about that now. I'm not going to go on and go into like the episode like it normally is. I'm just going to go on and just kind of talk about it. So I'm assuming that at some point Lucy is probably going to go on and probably be working with Sam at some point in some kind of capacity. Maybe not as like his assistant because that's a little too close, but like I'm assuming Lucy is just going to be working for Daddy at some point, right? Because that's the only thing story wise that actually makes sense. And then I'm sure at some point Lucy will probably get to know that Clark Kent is Superman because she's probably the only one left as a regular on the show that hasn't known who Superman really is. So, with that said, I think, yeah, I think that covers most of this episode, oddly. Um, Yeah, so if I do not go on and cover season three, if it seems that at some point randomly, I will just kind of go on and find a lot of people that still want me to do this review for three, then like I will just kind of I'll see how the numbers will go for the very first episode, but if there's not really any interest in this show, then it's just kind of like what's the point? I can go on and do other things. Eventually, some people may go on and find um, that people may like what other things I may have to do, or eventually they can go on and just as usual, kind of find whatever content is eventually available on this channel. But with that said, just a very lackluster just season finale. And so that's where I'm just like, man, like, I didn't like this whole season at all. And so I can just imagine what another season of this will just do. Um, so with that said, I think I'm just going to get out of here. Yeah, like, I think I kind of covered most of this. So we also had Jonathan, who was kind of walking with Candace, but like we never had a moment with them where Jonathan was kind of talking to Candace about what had happened throughout this whole entire season. It just kind of feels like they just show these characters just as like, hey guys, like maybe this relationship between the two of them is still gonna work out. Um, or maybe they should hit the hard reset button, right? Also, because we have druggy Candace or drug dealer Candace, my bad, who is to go on and have Jonathan that eventually is still hoping one day that he can be redeemed. Yeah. So with that said, I think I'm just gonna go on and just get out of here, just call it a day. Anyways, goodbye everybody. Bye everybody.